Boots Riley suggests hip-hop abandon the class struggle for luxury. This is a video from the New Old Heads that we shot 5 or 6 episodes ago. I'm going to revisit this now that it's been living for a little while, respond to some comments, and see if I think anything differently. I'm Sean, Longevity with Bringing Down the Band and the New Old Heads podcast, and this is my Unpack series where I typically go deeper on New Old Heads segments, and that's what I'm going to do today.
Always been critiques of hip-hop that people will have, revolutionaries will have, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, look, if we make that movement, and I keep summing it up as a mass militant radical labor movement, if we make that, we create the artists. We're having artists that are created in a world where there wasn't a movement that shaped their politics, right? And I always blame it on the radical movements because I always say that we ran away from class struggle for 50, 60 years.
Which is a different take on this conversation that we have, like
Facts.
Why are the mainstream artists kind of the way that they are right now, in a way? So Boots Riley argues that the culture ran away from the explicit class struggle. So has hip-hop's multi-decade obsession with luxury and wealth effectively sterilized its capacity to make conversation-shifting art? Or is it, that's one question. But I think another question is based upon kind of what he said. Is it more so related to the fact that this is what people are looking up to?
Yes. I think the money aspect of it is, to your point, it is what people are, one, looking up to, but it's also being rewarded. Like that, it's the thing that's being rewarded the most, is that concept. So the opposite of that is just by nature is going to get pushed back because this is what we're being rewarded for. This is what's being pushed to the forefront. So I think that has a lot to do with it. It's just what's being pushed. It's like we were talking about programming. Same thing, same concept.
I think it has a lot to do too with that's just part of the Black culture as a whole. I mean, we come from a lineage of people that were kings and queens and, had gold and, emblems and things of that nature that is something that's literally in your DNA at some point in time, to want to have nice things. I mean, they talked about it a lot they talk about it a lot in hip hop, but it kind of took over in the 90s as far as it being super glamorous because they were actually making money. But like, again, this is nothing new in Black culture. Like, we like to have relics that show that we're not stuck in that same area or same point of life that you pretty much tried to stop on us and make us live. You know what I'm saying? So once people got to a place in life where they could actually have something and do something, they're doing it, and they're still doing it in hip hop. It's just one of those things. But if you want to say hyper focus on just the materialistic things, I think that's a different story, because I think it's always going to come with success as a Black person. And it doesn't have to be stuff that show off to people. It can just be with, rich in life and how you're living and things of that nature. I think that has a lot to do with it too.
Well, Terry kind of already alluded to this, is like, when you talk about that scene in I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, where Clarence Williams III, his character was like, hey, we went down there with guns and we came out with jobs. And that's what happened in hip hop. We went down to the establishment with guns and ideas and medallions and trying to tell the fight the power and talking about the system. And we walked out with jobs.
You became a part of the system.
And you became a part of the system. And that's what a lot of rappers, you are right now. You went down, you traded your gun in, metaphorically, if you will, for a job, just because that job, because that job could pay you with a few trinkets that symbolize success.
It afforded you royalty.
So you were able to go ahead and justify the fact that you put down your gun for that job.
It's just like a movie They Live. I don't know if you remember that part. Remember there was a homeless encampment that Hacksaw Jim, that's who it was, right? No, Roddy. He's in there, and there's this one guy in there, and one of the guys, they like abduct him or whatever, and he ends up working for them. They just give him more money. Yeah. And so they show up in that scene. They're like, oh, you guys came over too. It's like, yeah, it's pretty nice over here.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, you see so many. I remember there was this miniseries called V. Back in the day.
Yeah. I used to be kind of scared of V.
Yeah, there was a reason to be scared. It was kind of freaky. Yeah. But the aliens came down here, and there are people who got down with the aliens because they were like, okay, they increased their rations and they gave you a little position, and you thought, okay, that made you special. It made you feel good. And didn't realize they were just fattening you up because they was going to eat you just like the rest of them, just like everybody else, and they were going to steal your resources, and you were going to be left with nothing, just like everybody. But it's just while you were being taken from, and while you were being exploited, you got to feel just a little bit better than the next man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that has a lot to do with it too. Like, it got to a point where, if you're successful as somebody that's Black, there's just certain things that represent success. And hip hop, I think hip hop's one of the messages was to try to teach people to not live in the struggle, but I'm going to show you that I'm not living in the struggle too, because you see what I have on, you see how I'm dressed. Whether it's true or not, it's a fake it till you make it type of situation. And I don't think that that's the whole message that they're trying to portray, but I feel like people have always wanted to be in a position to have nice things, and it's just one of those things that we like to show you that we have nice things.
And there's a difference between wanting to have nice things and having nice things. Like, it's cool to have nice things. I don't want, as it relates to culturally always wanting to aspire to have nice things just in the culture. I agree with that 100%. But I also think that social media is put it on steroids, because now everything that you see, even if it's an illusion, it's impactful because people scroll through just to see people living it. They're living the lifestyle. That impacts the culture as well, because now we can see it even more than we could in the era that we're talking about, the 90s leading up to now. Everything is on full display. And we can see all of the people that are quote unquote living the way that they live. Mm-hmm. People are impressionable, especially now. Everybody's scrolling, looking, TikTok, all that. So I think that goes into it as well, because it's times 10 now, because everybody can see it day to day. I think that affects, just people's mindset in general. It goes back to programming.
I think that's why the message is important. So even if I'm showing you that I have nice things, the message needs to be that I didn't do nothing crazy to get these nice things, so to speak, because
you're still who you are. You still live by the same principles that you know, or things of that nature. Because
I think a lot of times people associate having nice things in hip hop with crime or bad shit.
Yep.
Essentially,
or you took the deal, like you went out there and like you put down your gun and you took the job, and so like you can be seen as a bit of a sellout.
And so all right. The problem, based upon like what Boots Riley was saying and what we're kind of talking about here, is about taking the job. And a lot of people might be like, well, there's nothing wrong with taking a job. And to some degree, there isn't anything wrong with taking the job. But it comes down to, like, fundamentally kind of like what does this radical nature mean in general, right? And depending on how deep you want to go into, a lot of it comes down to the ownership of the labor, right? So it goes down to the ownership of the labor. And if you want to dive deeper into this stuff, go read deeper into, like Marx, if you want a little bit, or Das Kapital or some stuff like that, But essentially, breaking it down, the dichotomy here, the thing that's happening here is like, if you're working for the system, you're getting a little bit of a check, a little bit more than somebody else for something, but the system is still kind of in place. They just kind of employed you to be a part of it, to contribute to it, to sustain it. While at the same time, there's still people at the top that run everything that are still, even though you get more than the person below them, you're still not retaining as much as that top class, or the quote unquote bourgeois, if you will, right? And so, and this is something that we've seen as long as time, even if you go back to how racism is kind of injected into a lot of this stuff as well. And if you think back to, slave patrols, if you think about how the rich white plantation owners and people that owned slaves back in the day, and when that was changing around that period of time, how there was a mass movement in a way to convince the poor whites that they were more important than the poor blacks, and they gave them jobs of, slave patrols and things of that nature, and control. And in general, like you're still of the poor class, right? You're still, you're still of the poor class, but you're just a little bit better than this other person. And that's that same type of idea. It's like, just because you're doing well within the system does not necessarily mean that the system is doing well for people and for us as the artist class in general, if you will, right? And so until we have a movement to where labor, the people putting in the work, is valued just as much as the people that are owning the labor, then that's still always going to be kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter what kind of music you make. Mm. That's why, there have been times where like certain artists, I think that's why they don't floss in a certain way.
Yeah.
Because, it would hinder your ability to see them You know, like what if you found, there are some people who'd be disappointed they found out Black Thought had a Rolls Royce.
No, for sure.
Or if Common, you know, drove around in an extended, you know, $150,000 Range Rover.
And still, there's nothing wrong. One of the biggest, I think, misunderstandings here is that it means, like, people try to think like, well, if you believe this way, that means that you're not supposed to have nice things, and that's not what that means. Not what that means at all. You can have nice things. You know what I mean? You can have nice things just as long as you continue to represent and push for the things that you're a part of. We all have to exist within the system. That's part of it. We have to exist within this system. And nobody, you know, trying to limit harm reduct, if you will, as much of the pain and struggle as we can in the process. But it doesn't mean that we don't continually push and fight against. The issue becomes if in this hypothetical, if Black Thought won't give up his or took the Rolls Royce for something in particular. You know, it's like, you can either speak out on this or we can give you this Rolls Royce, right? That's different. It goes to the misconstruement or the false narrative that because you have money, it means that you no longer are a part of said idea or movement or whatever, right? It's Boots Riley, for example. He's no longer a part of the working class, but he is a communist. He literally is a self-proclaimed communist. He said it literally in this interview, and he lives by those ideas. And you don't equate that type of idea, or when you think of somebody with money, you think capitalist, right? Immediately. And he's very much for advocating for the class struggle and the class struggle that is happening. And all these examples that we're giving are people that are, they understand the class struggle from different perspectives, right? And some people think that defeating the class struggle is self-improvement.
Right.
And that's it. And that's not defeating the class struggle. That's
not where it stops.
That's you getting out of the situation that you're in and being in a better position. But that doesn't address the fact that this entire system that the people that you had to come up in still exists for the next person.
There you go. And I think you
out there spitting.
His concept or his idea about Black Thought. I think you said Black Thought.
Yeah, like if you found out Black Thought and they rolled up and they both had twin Rolls Royces, and it'd be like they were Puffy and Mace in '97.
I think Black Thought and Common are great examples of people who have worked and earned, you know, what they've received wealth-wise and, you know, with their music careers. But there's a level of authenticity that has always been involved with them throughout their career. They've never wavered on their principles. They've always stayed consistent. And I think that's the difference. You know, those the message never changed. Nothing shifted just because they became successful and copped the cribs or whatever you want to call it. They were consistently who they've been since we've watched them and known them.
But also, I mean, to this point, neither of them are, I don't know if I would consider either of them really radicals. I mean, maybe with some of the stuff they say in their music, but, you know, not to the extent of like a Boots Riley, though.
I think that is the important part because they've never changed, to my knowledge.
I mean, from an individualist perspective, I think yes. But I think also I want to be careful in general to, like, you know, just because somebody goes out and gets a job because it's better for their situation does not necessarily mean that they're sellouts necessarily.
Right.
I had I'm repeating like what I said. The thing is like I don't really remember this segment. It's been almost a month and a half. So
agree.
You know, because they are trying to do better. It depends on what they do within that system. But it's very easy because the system wants to kind of stick you with the needle and have you dormant, you know, in that particular type of way. But at the end of the day, whether you're Black Thought or Common or you're Gucci Mane or whomever, you know, like they're still individuals at the end of the day, right? And the struggle of what it is still exists. And if there's not effort to be put into make people's material conditions better in general, then this is just the cycle is going to continue. And I think that's the root of it all. It's not necessarily like, you know, necessarily even the music.
Cameron here recently said that he does not want to show off his money anymore.
Yeah.
So he's not stepping out the house with big jewelry and things like that on. He still has this money, but it's for me to enjoy myself. I'm not about to flaunt it in front of you to make you feel a certain type of way.
Right.
And I think that's important, you know what I'm saying, in a sense, because
that comes with age.
Yeah, it absolutely comes with age. It's and like the messaging, like you were talking about with Black Thought and Common, I mean, I guarantee you they live very nice.
Yeah.
But it's not the core part of what they're talking about. They're not talking about how much I have and, you know what I'm saying, how much money I got and things of that nature. I mean, the Roots did a song, What They Do, which was completely against what everybody in hip hop was doing at the moment.
Yes, sir.
And it described it to a T. The video, if you weren't listening to the message, you would have thought it was exactly like everything else out there.
Except when you read the captions, you could tell it was send up all those things.
Yeah, but there was a message behind that, and I feel like they've remained true. But I don't feel like just because you have a message that you should not reward yourself for what you've done and what you've contributed. Because at the end of the day, we all want to be successful for ourselves and for our families.
And I think that's a kind of to what Terry was talking about. It's a cultural thing because, you know, culture.
I kind of reject the fact. I mean, maybe there is some. I mean, obviously they're speaking on black culture specifically, and I'm not black, so I'm not going to speak on that. But I would say that this is more of an American thing as opposed to a black thing, because this is just what we're trained to do. Like that's what this is. So sure, maybe it is inherently a black thing as well, but I would say that it's a Western thing almost. You know, it's just the material pieces of everything. You know, it's just wanting to consume, wanting to hold on, wanting to hoard, wanting to have things, wanting to have a whole bunch of different types of cool things. You know, that's because that's how we can show that we have value to other people. That's what we were taught.
Really, and it's sad to say this, but you're frowned upon as you continue to level up and become more successful, because perception tells people that you're leaving behind, quote unquote, where you came from.
I don't really necessarily agree with that, because I mean that is the case, but I think that's not where that potential quote unquote hate comes from. The hate in that comes from you care about you and yours, but you don't realistically care about the grand scheme of how all of this is kind of building, right? And so like Jay-Z's a great example. Like he kind of contributes here and there a little bit. You know, he's like the capitalist that there's a difference between like fixing a system so that the system, like let's say we fix a system of governance to where like, I don't know, everybody has a house. Let's just use that hypothetical, you know, homelessness, right? There's a difference between like putting the burden on the system to house everybody as opposed to a couple people who have made it that get to pick and choose like who they want to help, right? And then, you know, I don't think the burden should be on the individual like that, but if that individual doesn't push for things that are going to help a grandiose amount of people, like if all of a sudden you go over here and, you know, sure, they help whatever they can, but they also like the things that they support and the things that they push are not with that, well then, you know, you kind of fall on one side or the other. You know what I mean? So it just kind of means that you were always this type of person. Does that make sense?
And in all actuality, just because I'm leveling up as an individual does not mean I've abandoned my...
And also I'd reject that leveling up as an individual has anything to do with money.
Principles. It just means I'm working hard and I'm leveling up to get in a better situation to, I don't know, potentially continue to push my movement or push what I'm working for. But culturally, it's always been frowned upon. Okay, so he's selling out now because he's got a promotion or bought this or got a house or got married. No, that's not it. It's just I'm working hard and I've, you know, achieved success. There's nothing wrong with that. That does not mean that you have to abandon your principles as an individual.
I think you also have to redefine what success means. You know, what does success mean in general? You know, are you framing success as just I have X amount of money and X amount of comfort? You know, that's different than the success that we're talking about kind of in this segment. Assuming you have principles.
Assuming you have, I mean, because a lot of people don't.
Well, because, you know, there winds up, and this is, you know, very much an 80s concept, not really 80s, but it was so defined by that Gordon Gekko, like greed is good type thing, where people were defined by the things that they could attain.
Yeah.
They were defined by the Rolex. They were defined by the Armani suits. They were defined by, you know,
again, this is just American thing.
You know, that they could, you know, buy, and, you know, their beach houses. Like those are the things, like when you watch a movie like Wolf of Wall Street,
sure.
Like the character Jordan Belfort is the villain in that movie.
Yep.
But if you watch it from a certain perspective, and from a perspective of somebody who thinks greed is good, then you're like, oh man, they're coming to get the hero and throw him in jail. You know, I mean, like, and we do a lot of that with, but that's how the narrative of film, and sometimes how, like when you watch American Gangster, you're like, oh man, come on, Frank. It's like, no, we shouldn't be rooting for Frank.
Think about Paid in Full, AZ, Rich. These guys, the what they had, that's what it was about. It's the look, it's the Audi, it's all of that. Like that's what made them who they were. But you still tearing down the community. You sell drugs in your own community at the same time.
But you know,
but that's what happens though. You know, that's what happens when the material conditions are so low. You know, having just anything is viewed as success, you know, making it.
What it is like when you begin to be defined by the spoils of war, if you will, then there is no morality. And you're like, well, whatever I had to do to get this, you know, this Mercedes-Benz coupe, the big body coupe, and these nice rings and have this, that, and the third. I did it because I had to do it. And like, there are people who are like, hey man, this is the only game that America left me to play.
There you go.
And so like, that's kind of
They actually helped you play it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But you know, like when you kind of hear Boots talk about different,
and the reason why America helps you play it is because it perpetuates the system of hyper individualism.
Interviews, because I have not seen the I Love Boosters movie where he says like,
I want to see it now.
Yeah. I do. I haven't heard the greatest things, but I want to see it just so I can, you know, be a little bit more learned as far as the conversation, especially when I hear his interviews, because I
still need to see it.
It gives a different perspective. You know, it's kind of like when we talked about the scamming ass song that Young Miami has, and how like really, how that's essentially a song that is a celebration of failure. How am I going to say that's a celebration of failure, but at the same time, the Pentagon cannot balance its books for the 8th year in a row?
Yeah, because
that's scamming too.
Yeah, it's all kinds of ways.
Two things can be true.
Absolutely, because I mean, the white collar crime exists as well. It's just not talked about and demonized as much as everything else. But like this, actually, the last question that you said actually kind of goes back to the first statement that he made about them removing or pretty much buying him out essentially and removing it from the radio. So that was an idea from a record company that decided to do that because he was pushing a whole different narrative.
Yep.
True.
And now let's hyper focus on consumerism. Me being a record company, I'm going to push the consumerism aspect of this music more because it makes people spend more money, which in turn is going to make them continue to spend with us and along with my corporate friends. So, and
also at the same time, the message that the Coup is pushing is in direct opposition to them continually making the type of money that they're going to push.
Yep. So it all kind of ties itself together with those.
Not
two
that the
questions.
Coup is going to be as big, you know, like massive than that. But who knows? You know, like you don't know. I mean, Rage Against the Machine was really big.
Yeah, but you know who else is on EMI now? I when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, it was Diggable Planets. And if you listen to both of their albums,
they got a Grammy for that.
And you know, they literally like. They be rocking Clarks. They be reading Mark's Where I'm From. Like there was those same messages, but it was just in a little bit of more of a jazzy format. You know,
easy listening. So to say.
There was some very Diggable Planets was a very anti-establishment group. You know, it's just like we didn't. Maybe the mainstream didn't pick up on it. They just heard like the jazzy riffs, and,
applesauce.
Yeah. And,
listen, what did Dre say? Y'all don't listen to it. Y'all just want to dance.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's kind of easy to hide the message in the applesauce if that's what you want to do. But some people are like the Coup is like, no, I don't want to hide it. I want to tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, if you watch the video for that song, there's no hiding what
he actually mentioned. I think it was in this interview. He talked about how like after the first or second album, he realized that the direct type of approach is not necessarily the best approach to it. You know, it's like more so about meeting people where they are emotionally at.
Yeah.
And which kind of goes to a lot of the stuff that he's saying here is like, if you can meet the person where they're emotionally at, they have a better chance to kind of, it's like the sorry to bother you, right? It's the message is there. It's like Idiocracy in a way. Like
it's not in your face.
It's just like, it's showing you the things that exist, but it's not pounding it down your throat. And I think from one perspective, it's funny.
Yeah. Be careful. Be careful.
But from one perspective, it's like, when I think about how indoctrination works and how I look at how we are indoctrinated as capitalist people in society. That's how we were born and into the society, and how communism is negative. Anything outside of capitalism is negative. If you're going to unpack that indoctrination in the same way that I had to unpack that to some degree, but also had to unpack white supremacy in different degrees, if somebody's going to yell at me, it's going to be harder for me to retain that information. If I have to discover it on my own through different subtle pieces, and then I can piece it together myself, it's going to feel stronger because it's going to feel like it's coming from me. And what he's doing with this in general, I feel like now, at least, is introducing the ideas, sparking the conversations, creating that bridge for people to do that next step to go further without being told,
sparking their interest more.
without saying, hey, you're an idiot if you don't know this. I think that's so important. The older and more wiser, if you will, that I've gotten, the more that I've realized that it's you can only bring people with you. You know, like you can bring them with you, but you can't. What's the old saying? Like you can bring them to the water, but you can't make them eat the fish or drink or whatever. I don't know. I'm probably mixing two of them up, but like it's very true. Like unless somebody is like supremely open, like legitimately open and wanting to learn, nobody wants to be preached to. End of the day, nobody wants to be preached at. It's just what it comes down to, and you're gonna get your point across a lot better if you can give somebody some examples and be like, well, I don't know, man, look at this. Look at this. I mean, this does exist, and you can be firm in that, but you can't change people's thoughts that already feel like they understand the thing that you're trying to tell them, you know?
That kind of goes back to school. If you think back to the teachers that you enjoyed the most, none of them, at least me personally, none of them were in your face and pointing and you got to do it like this.
Tony Dungy.
Yeah, the way that they taught the lesson to you made you interested in more.
Yeah.
It made you want to ask questions. You know, you can sit in a class and not ask a question the whole time because it's like, I'm just not feeling this teaching structure.
Sure.
You can go to the next class period with another teacher and you have all kinds of questions because it's engaging. It's making you want to, you know what I'm saying, strive for more knowledge. So yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Boots Riley suggesting hip hop abandoned the class struggle for luxury. I would say yes, but I would also say at the same time, I don't think it's a fully learned concept either. You know, not everybody understands everything to the degree that Boots Riley is talking about. It takes a lot of Boot Rileys. It takes a lot of people like that to continually, you know, talk about these things for something that's really kind of on the fringes in a lot of ways to really kind of cross over and hit the threshold. I feel like hip hop did abandon it for that, but I don't think it was intentional. And, you know, Mike made some good points there about like how it's, you know, if you get a little bit of success and it's viewed as something else, you know, it's viewed as like, well, I'm a traitor. And I feel like it's because of that inaccuracy or misunderstanding of what the class struggle kind of is, you know, and what it fully entails. I think sometimes it kind of makes it easy to just kind of misconstrue what it is, you know, like if you don't fully understand the class struggle, you only understand the struggle to whatever degree is affecting your life, then, you know, you're kind of aiming all over the place. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I like this video. I like it when we do segments like this. This is kind of, you know, I like the more political stuff because that's the stuff that I'm kind of into. So, but yeah, thank you for checking this out. I'm Sean. I will see you soon. Episode 500 is coming up soon for the New Old Heads. So if you're in the Indianapolis area, August 25th at the 808 Indie CD and Vinyl, we are going to be having our 500th show live. So make sure you check that out. Tickets coming soon. All right. Peace.